Hello ladies and gents, it's another video brought to you by Hood, and today I'll be doing another update on my Pheidole Noda or Noda, whichever way you pronounce it. Let's be honest guys, I can't even pronounce English. Now some of you may know from my other videos and things like that, that's my dog snoring in the background, it's not my Tommy, that Pheidoles are my Achilles heel. They are my kryptonite to what is to Superman. I struggle with them all the time. I've tried to keep them a couple of times and they just don't even start, they just generally die off straight away. So I've tried it one last time with these Pheidole Nodas and I'm going to give you an update on how they're getting on now. Anyway, I'll stop talking about my failings and go on to my ants. If you noticed, when I dropped this roach in, there was hardly any workers, and within literally 30 seconds they were hundreds of them, or hundreds in exaggeration, but there was a lot of them there. Their ability to recruit workers in such a short period of time is crazy. And I tell you what, for these little ants, sorry about the movement of the camera, I have to readjust a couple of times. Even though they're little ants, they're just so busy, so busy, and they're just running around all the time looking for stuff. And then when they find something, boom, they're all there on it, like they've got some supernatural psychic ability, pheromones obviously, to communicate with what their intentions are. And what I've noticed as well as a bit of a behavioural note is that they don't cut the food up in situ that often. If they can drag it into the tunnels and into the nest whole, they will, and they don't leave it out in the open for long either. As soon as they find it pretty much and they've subdued it, sorry about that, I had to put a barrier on because they were escaping through the old barrier that I put on. I just put an emergency one on just so I can film without them getting everywhere, which I need to remind myself to do that actually. But anyway, back to the point. They don't cut it up in situ and transport in their social stomachs or in smaller chunks back to the nest like a lot of other ants that I've got do, like my Camponotus for example do that a lot, and you'll see in other videos of them doing it. These ladies will take it whole if they can. If it's too big then they will cut it up, but they don't transport it in the social stomach per se. They just, as you see here, just drag it to the tunnel and over into it. Also, if you end up keeping Pheidoles, it's really important to remember these ladies are really protein hungry. I mean, you can see the size of this roach compared to the workers, and you'll see my brood and stuff that I've got in a second, well, a bit later in the video anyway. And they'll demolish this roach within a day or two, and then another roach has to go. I either feed them a large roach like this, or I give them about 5 nymph roaches, but their protein requirements are really high. And if you'll see the brood pile in a second, you'll probably understand why. And this is where I got the title of my video from, because I couldn't think of a title for it other than Update 3 or whatever. And then I tried to see them get this roach into the tunnel and just thought, guys, you can't get a square block into a round hole, and I thought, well, that'll do for a title. So that's where it comes from, in case anybody's wondering. Now, as you can see here, they're trying to get it in, failing miserably, and even now they've still got it in the tunnel and they can't get it through. But obviously there's access in and out, and if they do end up dismantling it in situ, I'll take the residue out. But what I've noticed about this as well is that even as a roach like this, they don't leave a lot of waste. I don't think they eat the exoskeleton, but I just can't seem to find where they're putting it. Probably in the bottom of the nest where there's a bit of space, because they still haven't moved in there, but I'll talk about that in a second as well. But what I also noticed about this is that, not so much in this video now, but you'll see a bit later, they end up taking a defensive arc around the bolty bit, if you want to call it. So they start defending the kill that they've got already. And these ladies are really ferocious, and they're really tenacious as well. Well, look, there's a major trying to cut the leg off. Let's see if she does it, because I've not actually reviewed this footage yet. Go on. No. Go on, she can do it. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. We'll keep an eye and we'll watch her anyway. But the majors here are huge. Has she just done it? She's just done it. Wow, how cool is that? Now let's move on to the brood pile, or the test tube. Now, if you remember from my last video, and I'll link it in the top right corner where I moved them into the nest, I initially forced the move by using light to get them into the nest, and they predominantly moved in, but there was still a couple of straggler brood left in the test tube. So I left the test tube attached so they can get it out, and then put it away. And then overnight they moved back into the test tube. Now, as I said in my last video, I'm more partial towards not forcing moves these days. The way I think about it is that I'll attach the nest. If they want to move into that nest, it's their prerogative. But these wanted to move back into the test tube. I was not interested in forcing the move, so I decided just to cover it, put a bit of heat cable on it so they got a bit of heat, and then leave them to it. Now, the test tube is running out of water, so I'd imagine that when it gets a bit too dry, they'll move into the nest again. But at the moment, I'm not interested in forcing them to move through light. And if they want to stay in a test tube, by all means stay in a test tube. It does not bother me. As long as they're healthy and doing well, which clearly from what was brewed, they are doing well. So I'm inclined to leave them to it. Now, what do you guys think about that? Should I force the move or should I leave them be? Personally, I think leave them be, keep them happy. But leave a comment. Now, it might be worth noting, because we can see it quite clearly here, that a lot of the workers have got swollen abdomens, which means they've got plenty of food in there, and it's all swollen up. Now, I'm not going to talk about how social stomachs work, because we all know how they work. If not, drop a comment, I'll explain. Now, it's definitely worth noting that even though these can store some food, they can't store a lot of food, and they need their majors, because the majors are literally the larders of the colony. Now, if you look at the majors in this video going along anyway, you'll see that they're all swollen up because they're all packed full of food, which is great because they're well fed, they've got a supply if they need it, blah 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 blah. But if you haven't got majors, you need to make sure you feed them regularly, be it honey water, seeds. Apparently these are these like seeds and stuff, but I've tried them with seeds, they're not interested. But seeds, protein, etc., because if they haven't got the majors, they cannot store a lot of it. It's definitely worth noting, guys. Now, I cannot tell you how pleased I am that these are doing well, because as I mentioned before, I have failed with Pheidole so many times, and it does kind of get you down. Now, I know full well as you guys do, that sometimes queens just aren't destined to survive, and the colonies aren't destined to survive. Even sometimes when you have a couple of queens, they might not survive. And Pheidoles are particularly sensitive. Once they're established, I believe they're quite robust, but up to the point where they're established, they're quite difficult to maintain. Now, that's the queen that's not lost its leg, look. See the leg's missing? That was what I was talking about. She's fine. Anyway, sugar, I've lost my train of thought. No, it's all right, I've got it back again. It's about perseverance with these ants. You may fail a couple of times, but keep trying, guys, because they are really interesting to watch. And because they're so polymorphic with the majors that are like huge compared to the normal workers, they're interesting to watch. I mean, you've seen the video earlier, just watching a major slice through a cockroach leg, even like there was nothing to it. They're really cool, and I really advise that you get them. Now, you're going to think I'm making excuses, and fair play, but my camera quality is going to drop a little bit, but please excuse it. See, it's not the greatest. Now, I was just doing a cast along so you can see the brood, because I'm quite pleased with how they've progressed and how much the brood pile has grown since when I first got them. And I had those initial concerns, and then I noticed a big white blob, which you can just zoom in here. Now, the quality gets a bit bad when I zoom in, and that's what I'm apologising for. I do break out my macro lens in a second, but anyway. And I was curious to what it was, so like I said, decided to break out the macro lens and have a look. Now, yet again, this quality is rubbish. I am using my phone for this, so I do apologise. I am looking at getting a Nikon D300, no, 300, but that's a couple of £100 and I ain't got it, and that's second hand, then a macro lens on top of that. But anyway, that's the white blob was a big developing major, which is good. And you also see through a couple of the videos as well that I've got really large pupae, which kind of tells me, or larvae, which tells me they're the majors as well. So they're producing the majors and they're moving on, which is great news because it just shows how stable my colony is. Now you might say, Hood, what are you talking about? What has majors got to do with showing you've got a stable colony? It's because they take so much resources to produce. They take so much time to produce, and they're a valuable asset to the colony. And they will not produce them unless they're in a stable, good position to produce them. Now obviously mine are doing really well, they've produced loads and they're doing really good. You might think, but their primary roles are soldiers. Well, it isn't really. I would say their primary role is protection to start with. Yes, protection, soldier role maybe, but that's the nest. They generally lurk in the nest. They're generally the larders for the nest as well, where they store all the food, as I said before. And they don't really come out to do the protecting or heavy cutting. And if they do, there's only one or two. There's not mass on numbers of them coming out. If you can see from my colony, I've got loads of majors. So I'm pretty confident that and a brood pile as well, obviously. So I'm pretty confident that my noders are doing all right. And I'm really pleased because, like I said, Pheidoles are my Achilles heel. I just struggle with them so much, and I'm so pleased these are doing all right. And this is literally the only picture I've got of the nest that I've put to the white tongue nest I've got for them as well. Now there is some majors in there, and there is some brood, as you can see here. That looks like a major larvae as well because it's huge. Then, like I said, I make sure the climate's right for it in there, but they still haven't moved. I think they will once the test tube runs out of water. Well, that's it for today then, guys. I hope you didn't get bored of my waffling too much, but I'm really excited about my noders doing well because, like I said, I struggle with them normally, and these guys are doing good. So well happy. Don't forget to check out the Antcast or podcast that I'm doing with the My Living World Ants, the Colonialist, and Ant Holifer. I think I got that right once. I had to ask him on the podcast how to pronounce his name because I'm terrible at it. Anyway, episode 2 should be out on Monday the 1st of February. So if you're watching it post the 1st, you're missing 2 episodes, get on it, listen to them. Good banter, to be fair. Really enjoyed doing them. But anyway, I'll stop talking rubbish. That's it for today, guys. I'll see you in my next video.